Hello. Hi, welcome back. It's me again. This is my channel where I talk about things I'm interested in. And today I am giving you a wrap up for October. I have had a very interesting October. It was a pretty wild ride. I had planned to do more in October than what I actually ended up doing. And I will say, despite not doing as much as I wanted, I still got some good reading done. And I also watched some really interesting things too, which I'm going to talk about as well. Let's start by talking about what I read in October. The first book that I finished in October was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I'm pretty sure. Yes. Wait. Yes. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. If you don't know the premise of this book, we're following the main character, Addie LaRue, who has made a deal with a dark god that essentially allows her to live forever. She wants to be free. She wants to have more time to explore the world. She's a 16th century French woman who, just wants to live her life. And this dark god gives it to her. The catch is that every single person that she meets forgets who she is. And her family, her friends, none of them can remember who she is. And the moment that she leaves their sight, they forget again that she ever existed. So it's a tough life that she lives. This book is so fascinating. I was into it from the beginning. I read this through the two hurricanes that came and blew through Florida. And it was definitely the right vibes. It was keeping my spirits up for sure. There is a pretty big twist in the book, and I saw it coming from a mile away. And I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it definitely didn't make me mad, but it did propel me to finish the book because I kind of wanted to see with this twist how it was going to end. Love the character of Addie LaRue. I love the whole premise of the book. This is definitely one I'm super glad to have on my bookshelf because I might read it again. I might go back through and just reread it again because it was almost comforting. Like, granted, Addie LaRue doesn't live this like very glamorous life, but it was just such a comforting read to read about her and her desire to live and experience the world. And I just absolutely love that. I loved every second of it. Kind of surprised that I liked it as much as I did because I did hear some mixed reviews about it. Not everyone loves this book. And I had read V.E. Schwab before. I read A Darker Shade of Magic. And the problem with that book is the same problem that people have when they meet Addie LaRue. I can't remember a single thing from Darker Shade of Magic. That's not true. I remember like the first quarter of the book and I don't remember anything else. So I know I'm going to have to go back and reread that one. But this one, I just loved it. It was just such a comforting read to me. And it was just like at the perfect time for me during October when I was looking for something to just like be this comforting book that I can go to and just enjoy. I just loved it. It was great. It was perfect vibes. The next book that I read in October was The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. This came out, I'm going to say a couple of years ago. And I got the Book of the Month edition at my local library. And I just saw it and I was like, this is cute. This looks really adorable. And I was like, I'm going to get it. And then I proceeded to have it sit on my shelf for almost a year. It was October. And I thought, why not give it a try? I'm sitting at home waiting for the power to come back on. So let's crack it open. And I did. And it was so cute and enjoyable. It was not very like intense, meaty writing. It was very just simple and very easy, but it was a great, lighthearted, cozy, cute read about a young witch who lives in a town where there's like a magical side and like a non-magical side, and the town is owned by, not owned, but like founded by this family from Wales. And the son of the family that owns or founded the town goes to the town, and they had like this is like a second chance romance where they had a romance previously like 10 years before, and this is like they're meeting again for the second time, and the chemistry is still there. It was just, again, is another perfect little read for the month of October when I'm sitting in my house trying to forget about all of the disaster that's happening around me. This was a perfect escape. So, super enjoyed The Ex Hex by Aaron Sterling. Let's talk about the next book. I listened to Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood on audio. I think that this is an audiobook only book because I haven't been able to find it anywhere else. It was on, what was it on? It was on Spotify. I think it's like a Spotify like specific exclusive audiobook, but it was also on Hoopla through my library. So I went and just downloaded it through Hoopla and listened to it there. And I was listening to this like back and forth from my commute as we were trying to get back into school and set up. And it was honestly perfect. It's super, super short. I think it was only like 2 or 4 hours long, but it's about these two game developers who work for competing studios, and the studios or the game developers have to collaborate to work together on this game that they've been contracted to make. And these two developers kind of have like a lukewarm rivalry going on, and she thinks that he hates her and he thinks that she doesn't want anything to do with him, and that's not at all true. And they end up going on this retreat together. Their companies end up going on this retreat together, and they have to spend like forced proximity, and it was absolutely super fun and cute. I've never read Ali Hazelwood before. This was my very first Ali Hazelwood gateway, and I liked it. I was a little weirded out by the spicy scenes. I am not afraid of spicy scenes, okay? I have read my fair share of spicy scenes. But to me, there's a very specific type of spicy scene that I enjoy. And this one was a little, it just was not quite my taste of spicy scenes, but like it may have been at one point in time. It just isn't now. It was very young. Let me just say that, right? Like the characters were younger than me, which maybe added to the awkwardness of reading the spicy scene, but also it just, I don't know, it didn't quite encourage the spice within me. I don't know if I'm making any sense whatsoever, but I enjoyed it. But I do think I will try one of Ali Hazelwood's more popular books before I make a final judgment. I also read a musical in October. I read The Sound of Music, which is a Rodgers and Hammerstein classic musical. This is the original, which I learned through reading this play that the movie is a derivative of the original musical. There's a lot that was changed, and even trying to follow along with the soundtrack to The Sound of Music, I had to kind of skip around to the different songs because they didn't all quite match up. And there were a couple of songs that weren't even available on the original Broadway recording. So I found that particularly interesting. I do think that this had a lot more focus on the Nazi backstory that happens. If you're not aware, The Sound of Music takes place in Germany, and it is about a young nun who is basically trying to find herself. And she realizes that the nunnery is not the place for her. And so the nuns tell her, like, leave, go away. Like, this is not the place for you. Like, you need to go somewhere else. And so she goes and becomes a nanny for this local rich guy, general. He's involved in politics somehow. And the people around him are very clearly trying to, join the Nazi party. And he's like, no, thank you. Anyway, she becomes the nanny to his kids and then realizes that she's in love with him. And he realizes that he's in love with her too. There's like 8 kids. Wait, is it 8? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 children. This is an iconic musical. I think this is definitely something I will read with students because even the historical background is pretty appropriate for them, because if you're reading history at all, like, it's kind of important to be thinking about. But It's also very much a musical for musical lovers. Like the Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti song is like so iconic. And all of the music in this play, in this musical, is iconic. I had a great time reading it, and I definitely think this will be one that I share with students in my class in the future. I read Witchlings by Claribel A. Ortega. I talked about this book in my Halloween vlog. I read this through the week of Halloween. Perfect middle grade book for Halloween for October. Such a cute little book. I can't even handle it. I love this book. I did not anticipate to love it as much as I did, but I love it. Claribel A. Ortega has now become one of my favorite middle grade authors, and that's saying something because there's a lot of middle grade fiction out there that hasn't really made the cut for me, and this is one of them. This book follows a girl named Seven Salazar who desperately wants to be sorted into one of the high-profile covens in her town called Ravenskill. And during the ceremony where all of the young witchlings are sorted into their covens, she is sorted into the coven of Spare. Spares are basically the leftover witches after all of the other witches have been sorted into the covens. So being a spare is kind of like not a great thing. So she's super embarrassed about it. And she realizes that because her like energy and emotions are a little hesitant about joining this new coven, she has to complete this impossible task in order to save her magic and the magic of her fellow spares, as well as save her town. Super fun read. Thought it was going to be like pretty straightforward and like normal. Very well done. Super great twist. Absolutely love all of the characters. I love the whole message of like building friendship and like, you know, looking past the original perceptions of how you see people. Super great middle grade novel. And I just got the sequel. I'm so excited. Love this book. The last book that I read that I finished on Halloween night that I cannot stop thinking about is The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. I borrowed this from the library and now I feel like I'm going to have to buy it because I own The Killing Moon, which is the first book in this duology. This is the sequel, and this is supposedly the end of the Dream Blood series, which I'm kind of disappointed to learn because it's such a fascinating world that N.K. Jemisin has built within these two books. And again, I talked about this in my Halloween vlog. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. Like, I got through almost 60% of the book before I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite book. This was, I want to say, almost better than the first book, which is such a rare occurrence in my reading experience. And I'm like astounded by it. I love N.K. Jemisin. I'm definitely going to give her other series a try, but I love the Dream Blood series. I loved it. There were a couple of things in this series, specifically this book, that I took issue with. And the main thing about the second book is that there's at least 3 scenes in which sexual assault is depicted. And if you're not ready for that, it can be a little jarring. It was for me. There was violence in the first book, absolutely. And it was violence that I think felt expected and pretty on par for the course, at least for what I had been reading in that book. The second book, the violence was a little jarring. There were moments where I was like, oh, that's where we're going with this. Okay. The payoff was great. Let me just say that the payoff at the end of this book was great for me. Worked out well for me. Was not upset. I may have been if the payoff wasn't good, but it was good in this book. And I really wish there was another book in the series because it's just such a fascinating world, like seriously fascinating. If you don't know what the Dream Blood series is about, it basically is this world where they have this magic system that's based on the dreaming world and the waking world. And there are these people known as gatherers who are able to go inside of dreams and like lead your soul to the beyond. Either if you're dying, like you to give you a peaceful send-off, or if you are corrupt and you're a criminal and they have to kill you and execute you. And then there's this other group in the world that are known as sharers, and they're basically like healers, and they can go into your dreams and heal you, like make you live longer, like make you have less pain, like cure cancer. Like it's seriously legit. So the first book focuses mainly on the gatherers in that group, and then the second book is focused mainly on the sharers. I don't want to give too much more away because I really think that everyone should read it because it is honestly so good. Shadowed Sun. I can't stop thinking about it. I think I'm going to have to buy it. This is from my local library, and I will return it after filming this video. But I kind of want to go buy a copy for me to put on my shelf. I do want to talk a little bit about what I watched in October because I watched some pretty good stuff and I have a lot of thoughts on it. So why not? I'm gonna share with you what I watched in October. So buckle up. I kicked off my October watching marathon. I didn't really take a marathon, but I kicked off my October movies with Addams Family Values. I watched this a couple years ago. I watched Addams Family, the first in this Addams Family franchise, last year when our school was doing Addams Family, the musical, for our production, for our yearly musical production. You know, I wanted to help get inspiration. So this year it popped up again on my recommended, and this time it was the sequel. So I ended up watching the sequel, which I think is the better of the two Addams Family movies. The first one is mainly focused on Fester and him being a part of the Addams family. And the second one also has this plot of Fester, but there's this subplot of Wednesday and Pugsley when they go to camp. And that's the scene where Wednesday plays the Native American girl in the Thanksgiving Day play in the camp, in the summer camp. Which, wait, now that I'm thinking about that, is really awkward and weird. Why were they doing a Thanksgiving play in summer? Anyway, fantastic scene, iconic scene. Christina Ricci is like literally what everyone thinks of when they think of Wednesday. I mean, not anymore now because of the TV show on Netflix, but this is what everyone thought of before. This was iconic 90s Wednesday, okay? This is what everyone aspired to be. Great movie. And it is better than the first, now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, the other thing, oh yes, the next thing I watched in October was Woman of the Hour. And this is starring Anna Kendrick, and she also directed this movie as well. This is on Netflix, by the way, if you haven't watched it. Woman of the Hour is based on the true story. I can't remember which serial killer it is, but like this woman goes on this dating show, The Dating Game, and she's paired up with a bachelor who ends up being a serial killer. And I say that in not like a positive way, like it ends up like very scary. But the way that it's directed is so fascinating and interesting. Anna Kendrick, I think, does a really good job of depicting the violence of this killer in a way that's not normally depicted, in my opinion. I thought it was really interesting, especially the character's background and the juxtaposition between the bachelor's background and her background, and also like depicting him as this like very smooth, charming guy who is very easily able to, you know, seduce women into being alone with him. Very fascinating, pretty telling of the time too. I may go back and give it a rewatch just to see if there was anything I missed or like have more thoughts on it, but I thought it was really good. I think it's worth the watch, to be honest. The last three things I watched in October were because we were watching them in my class for the end of the quarter. And the first one is The Wizard of Oz. And I got to tell my students about all the crazy things that happened on the set of The Wizard of Oz, which I think I might have traumatized them. I really actually enjoyed watching this again because I had seen it before, obviously, but I really enjoyed watching it again and just seeing how they did what they did, the cinematography, the way that they put together the production value, and also knowing all of the dark side of that, all of the corners that were cut, and all of the danger that they put their actors in, and all of the injustice that they did for their actors. It's really crazy that this movie is as iconic as it is, and like very much a picture of American cinema, and also knowing all of the dark, horrible, corrupt things that the producers did to make this happen. Absolutely insane. The next musical we watched in class was Annie, and this is again the 2019 version of Annie. Have I mentioned this before? I've watched this a couple of times. This Jamie Foxx, Cameron Diaz. It's really well adapted from the original. Like the music itself is a nice callback to the original while also being modern and more upbeat and fitting a much younger, more modern audience. I thought that was done really well also. Really enjoy watching Annie 2019 because I do think that it is just a nicer and more interesting version of this musical. Finally, I watched Into the Woods, the original Broadway cast recording, not the Disney version. If you have never seen the original Broadway cast recording of Into the Woods, stop this video. Go look it up. It's free on YouTube. Go watch it. This musical, the Disney version just somehow warps the entire thing and it makes it almost unwatchable. Okay, but that's something to be said for a Meryl Streep movie for me personally. I love Meryl Streep, and to say that about one of her movies is horrifying, but it's the truth. The Disney version just like is so bad. Like, how do they make such an amazing, great musical suck? It's just disgraceful. It's really disgraceful. The original Broadway cast recording stars Bernadette Peters, who is a musical icon, okay, in and of herself. But the whole production and filming of this stage musical is so well done. It takes you there. It takes you to the theater to watch this production while also zooming in on these amazing actors and singers and how well they depict these fairy tale stories. Watching it again, and every time watching it, I'm just transported back in time to sitting on my best friend's carpeted floor watching her VHS tape of Into the Woods, the original Broadway cast recording. Every time. And my mind is blown again and again. The way that the stage production is presented is almost, it's a great balance. It does a really good job of balancing the comedy with the seriousness of that musical. And yes, before you're like, wait, seriousness? Yes, absolute seriousness in that musical is a perfect balance in that original Broadway cast recording. I think probably because you have the element of the audience applauding and laughing at the appropriate times, which make you feel like safe in laughing at certain things that are kind of weird and gross, that the Disney version just does not allow for at all. There's no breaks for laughter when I feel like there definitely should be. And there's no moments of heaviness when the seriousness of certain lines or events take place. And I just gotta say, if you've never seen the original Broadway cast recording of Into the Woods, please go do it now. Please go watch it now. It is worth the watch. It is worth the hour, 2 hours that you will spend in front of your screen to listen and to watch that, because it's so much better than the Disney version. Let's just pretend that they never did that. Let's just pretend they never did a Disney version of Into the Woods and just pretend like the original Broadway cast recording is it. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching again. Please leave some comments. I don't know, or not, whatever, I don't care. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.